Good evening, dear listeners, and a very warm welcome to you all, wherever you are tuning in from tonight. Maybe cozied up in bed, listening from your favorite quiet corner at home, or perhaps relaxing somewhere peaceful with the world fading away outside. I'm so glad you've joined me here. Take a slow, deep breath. Let your shoulders drop. Maybe pull the covers up a bit higher and feel the day gently slip away. Let the story begin. Highclere Court was the perfect stage for tragedy. Elegant Art Deco lines, polished marble floors gleaming under crystal chandeliers, every weekend guest playing their refined role in silk and tweed. Then the Countess of Highclere was found dead in her locked boudoir, a silver letter opener buried in her back, her Worth perfume still lingering in the warm air. The police saw a simple burglary gone wrong, but Hercule Poirot saw a performance. Someone in this theatre of wealth was playing the role of innocent, the role of murderer. The curtain rises. Chapter 1. The stage is set. Highclere Court was the perfect stage for tragedy. Elegant Art Deco lines rose against the English countryside, its polished marble floors gleaming under crystal chandeliers. Every weekend guest played their refined role in silk evening gowns and crisp tweed, the air heavy with the scent of hothouse lilies and expensive Chanel perfume. Then the Countess of Highclere was found dead in her locked boudoir. A silver letter opener, engraved with her family crest, protruded from between her shoulder blades. Her Worth perfume still lingered in the warm drawing-room air, mixing faintly with the cold marble fireplace where burnt papers smoked softly. The grandfather clock chimed 3 times in the distance, its sound echoing like a final cue. Inspector Japp of Scotland Yard stood near the doorway, his rough tweed coat a harsh contrast to the room's elegance. "Looks like a straightforward burglary, Poirot." Thief climbed through the French window, surprised her while writing letters, and stabbed her when she resisted. Door locked from inside. Classic case. Hercule Poirot adjusted his moustache with precision. His egg-shaped head tilted slightly as his green eyes surveyed the scene. "Mais non, mon ami. This is no ordinary burglary. Observe the stage. Everything is too perfectly arranged. The letter opener belongs here. The window forced, but not clumsily. This crime, it was directed with care. The cast of characters had gathered in the grand drawing-room. Lord Reginald Highclere paced near the grand piano, his face pale beneath a layer of sandalwood cologne. He clutched a crisp linen napkin, dabbing at imaginary sweat on his brow. The warm fire crackled in the hearth, casting flickering light across velvet curtains. Beside him sat Miss Evelyn Trent, the Countess's young secretary. Her silk blouse was crisp, hands folded neatly in her lap. She avoided everyone's eyes, staring instead at the distant chandelier that tinkled softly overhead. The scent of her light perfume blended with the rich aroma of abandoned continental coffee on a side tray. Young Mr. Charles Beaumont, the nephew and heir, lounged against the velvet curtains. He attempted nonchalance, twisting the stem of a champagne flute. The icy liquid inside remained untouched, while faint rain pattered against the windows. Lady Violet Ashford, the Countess's sister, wept softly into a lace handkerchief. Her black silk gown shimmered under the lights, and the heavy scent of Worth perfume filled the air around her. Dr. Marcus Hale, the family physician, stood stiffly nearby, his leather medical bag resting on a polished mahogany table like an unused prop. The chill night air seeped in from the slightly ajar terrace door. Poirot drew himself up to his full height, still small, and smoothed an imaginary wrinkle from his sleeve. He made an expressive gesture with his small hands toward the assembled group. "Mesdames et messieurs, you are all actors upon this stage tonight. One of you has played the role of murderer. Hercule Poirot has arrived to direct this drama toward truth." Lord Highclere stopped pacing abruptly. His voice carried strain beneath its cultivated tone. "This is outrageous, Poirot. My wife lies dead, and you speak of theatre." "Precisely, Lord Highclere. The theatre of crime. Watch this performance carefully. Is it truth or theatre? The mask slips. Did you catch it?" Inspector Japp cleared his throat, shifting on the parquet floor. Footsteps echoed softly as the suspects adjusted their positions. We questioned them briefly. Everyone claims they were in their rooms after dinner. The Countess retired early to write letters. No one heard anything until the maid discovered her at midnight. Miss Evelyn Trent spoke first, her voice steady, yet her fingers trembled slightly beneath the table. "I brought her hot coffee around 10 o'clock. She seemed perfectly normal. Then I retired to my room." Charles Beaumont laughed, the sound too loud against the crackling fire. "Aunt Amelia was fine when I said good night. She was always meddling, but very much alive." Lady Violet's delicate sobs intensified for a moment before subsiding. She dabbed at dry eyes with her lace handkerchief. Dr. Hale placed a comforting hand on her shoulder, though tension lined his own face. The warm drawing-room felt suddenly oppressive, the fire's heat contrasting with the chill radiating from the terrace. Poirot's green eyes gleamed with satisfaction as he arranged a few displaced objects on a nearby table with symmetrical precision. The crystal chandelier continued its soft tinkling, while the distant piano music from another room provided an ironic, haunting backdrop. The smell of Cuban cigar smoke lingered faintly from the previous evening, mixing with fresh flowers and leather from the armchairs. Lord Highclere resumed pacing, his footsteps heavy on the polished floor. "We had our differences, yes. Money troubles with the estate, but I would never harm her," Miss Trent added quietly. "She trusted me with all her correspondence. I have nothing to hide." Yet Poirot observed each movement closely. "You watch with Poirot, non? See how this one's hands tremble? How that one laughs too sharply? The careful observer. And you are becoming careful, mon ami. Will notice the small gestures that betray the role. The rain grew steadier against the windows, its rhythm underscoring the rising tension. Champagne corks from earlier in the evening lay discarded, their dry scent still present. Poirot tilted his egg-shaped head, considering the cast before him. Dr. Hale spoke measuredly. "I examined the body briefly. Death was quick. The letter opener was hers, used for correspondence. She had complained of nerves lately, but nothing suggested violence." "Complained of nerves?" Poirot murmured. "Interesting. The psychology, it begins to reveal itself." Lady Violet lifted her tear-streaked face. "We were close despite everything. She could be difficult, but she was my sister." Each word hung in the warm air like a rehearsed line. Contradictions already whispered beneath the surface, alibis too neat, grief too perfectly timed. The scent of strong coffee mingled with the faint bitterness of fear that no perfume could mask. Hercule Poirot turned once more to the assembled players. His small hands gestured expressively as he spoke. "The stage is set. The actors have taken their places. Let the drama begin." Chapter 2. Enter the players. The interviews unfolded like carefully staged scenes the next morning. Soft daylight filtered through heavy velvet curtains in the library of Highclere Court. The air carried the rich scent of furniture wax mixed with fresh hothouse lilies arranged in crystal vases. Poirot sat behind the polished mahogany desk, arranging his notes with order and method. A grandfather clock chimed softly in the background. First to enter was Lord Reginald Highclere. He played the role of the devastated husband with measured gravity. His silk dressing gown replaced the previous evening's tweed, and the faint aroma of sandalwood cologne lingered around him. He smelled faintly of the dry champagne from the night before. "She was my everything, Poirot," he said, his voice cracking at precisely the right moment. He clutched a crisp linen napkin as if it were a necessary prop. "We had our differences, money troubles with the estate, but I loved her dearly." Hercule Poirot touched his magnificent moustache thoughtfully. His green eyes studied the man before him. "The performance of grief is convincing on the surface, Lord Highclere. But observe, the eyes remain dry. The shoulders shake, yet the hands stay perfectly steady. Too perfect. Truth does not rehearse." Lord Highclere shifted uncomfortably in the leather armchair. The material creaked softly under his weight. "What exactly are you implying?" "Merely that every actor has a secret, Poirot. Cease behind the masks. Tell me, why did you argue with the Countess after dinner last night?" The Lord's face flushed slightly. "It was nothing important. She wanted to change the will again. She was always changing things on a whim." Miss Evelyn Trent entered next, her footsteps light on the parquet floor. She wore a simple silk blouse and skirt that rustled softly with each movement. The scent of her light perfume mixed with the warm continental coffee Poirot had ordered for the session. "I was devoted to her," she said quietly, her hands folded neatly. "The Countess trusted me with everything, her letters, her personal affairs." "But you avoid my eyes, mademoiselle," Poirot replied. He tilted his egg-shaped head slightly. "Ask yourself, why does she avoid his eyes? The careful observer will notice how your fingers twist the handkerchief. This role of the loyal secretary, is it truth or is it necessity?" Miss Trent paled, but kept her composure. "I have nothing to hide, Monsieur Poirot." Charles Beaumont sauntered into the library next. He attempted the part of the carefree nephew with forced nonchalance. His kid gloves had been removed, revealing fingers that fidgeted constantly with a silver cigarette case. Distant piano music drifted from another room, providing an ironic backdrop. "Aunt Amelia could be difficult, but family is family," he said with a short laugh. "I was in my room reading most of the evening. The champagne made me sleepy." Poirot made an expressive gesture with his small hands. "Too rehearsed, mon ami. Lies flow smoothly while truth often stumbles. You stand to inherit a great deal now that she is gone, non?" Beaumont's smile faltered for a brief second before he recovered. "That doesn't mean I killed her." Lady Violet Ashford followed, her black silk gown whispering against the floor as she moved. She dabbed delicately at her eyes with a lace handkerchief scented with expensive Worth perfume. The fire in the library hearth crackled warmly, casting a gentle glow. "We were very close despite everything," she said, her voice trembling appropriately. "Amelia could be demanding, but blood is thicker than water." Dr. Marcus Hale was the last to enter. His leather medical bag rested beside the chair like a faithful prop. He carried the faint scent of bitter medicine mixed with strong coffee. "I examined the body briefly last night. Death was instantaneous. The letter opener belonged to her. She used it regularly for opening correspondence." Poirot smoothed an imaginary wrinkle from his sleeve. "And yet you prescribed sleeping draughts for the Countess recently. Why was that necessary, Doctor?" Dr. Hale hesitated for a moment. "She suffered from nerves due to the pressures of managing the estate. Nothing unusual for a woman in her position. Each interview revealed small missed cues and subtle contradictions. Lord Highclere claimed he had retired to his room by 10 o'clock, yet a servant had seen him on the terrace near 11. Miss Trent insisted she heard nothing unusual, but her bedroom window overlooked the Countess's boudoir. Charles Beaumont described the book he claimed to have been reading, yet the volume remained untouched on his shelf with crisp, unmarked pages. Lady Violet's grief seemed to rise and fall on command, her tears perfectly timed. Dr. Hale's medical notes appeared far too conveniently precise for a routine examination. "The players have entered," Poirot murmured later to Inspector Japp as they stood near the library window. Rain continued to patter softly against the glass. But who performed truth and who performed lies? Every actor in this drama carries a secret. Watch carefully, mon ami. Someone will forget their lines very soon. The tension in Highclere Court rose steadily throughout the morning. The warm drawing-room felt heavier with suspicion. The scent of wood smoke from the fireplace mixed with the faint chill of uncertainty in the air. Crystal glasses from the previous evening still stood on side tables, their faint champagne aroma lingering. Poirot arranged a few objects on the desk symmetrically, his green eyes gleaming with quiet satisfaction. Consider the psychology of each performance. What role does this person need to play? If you were hiding guilt, how would you perform innocence? Lord Highclere paced once more in the hallway outside, his footsteps echoing on the parquet. Miss Trent sat alone in the morning room, her silk blouse now slightly wrinkled from nervous hands. Charles Beaumont smoked on the cold terrace, attempting calm while the chill night air from earlier still clung to the atmosphere. The grandfather clock chimed again, marking the passage of time in this unfolding drama. Doors closed softly in the distance as servants moved about their duties with hushed voices. Hercule Poirot stood by the window, looking out at the rain-swept gardens. The stage is alive with performances, some convincing, some already straining at the seams. The first act has only just begun, but the masks, they are beginning to show their edges. Every actor had taken their mark. But who played truth? Chapter 3. The first act deeper investigation moved into the cold afternoon light. Poirot and Inspector Japp returned to the Countess' boudoir, where the air still held the faint scent of her Worth perfume mixed with the smoky residue of burnt papers in the marble fireplace. Velvet curtains hung motionless, and the crystal chandelier in the adjoining room tinkled faintly as a servant passed in the corridor. A single smudge of lipstick, matching Lady Violet Ashford's shade, remained on the silver letter-opener's handle. Fragments of a new will, partially burned, mentioned a mysterious charity and disinherited Charles Beaumont entirely. The French window showed signs of forced entry, yet the marks appeared deliberately neat. "The mask slips," Poirot said softly, his green eyes gleaming with satisfaction. He touched his magnificent moustache thoughtfully. "Did you catch it?" Lady Violet visited her sister after 10 o'clock. She claims it was only to say good night. But this lipstick tells a different story. A servant's testimony confirmed seeing Lady Violet slip quietly from the boudoir around 10:45, her face flushed and her silk gown slightly disheveled. When confronted again in the warm drawing-room, her performance of grief began to strain. She twisted her soft kid gloves nervously, the material pulling against her cold hands. "I only wanted to talk sense into her about the will," she admitted, her voice breaking dramatically. "We argued, yes, but she was alive when I left. I swear it." Poirot arranged several small objects on a side table with symmetrical precision. "Observe this performance carefully. Is it truth or theater? The tears come now, but earlier they were absent when it mattered most." Lady Violet's shoulders shook, yet the lace handkerchief she clutched remained perfectly dry. The fire crackled warmly in the hearth, contrasting with the chill suspicion that filled the room. Rain continued to patter steadily against the windows, adding a melancholy rhythm to the unfolding scene. In a quiet moment alone with Inspector Japp near the polished mahogany desk, Poirot employed his director method. The performance. She weeps, yes. The handkerchief dabs at the eyes at exactly the right moments. The shoulders shake with appropriate emotion. The tell, but observe, the handkerchief stays dry. No mascara runs. The performance of sisterly devotion is technically flawless. Too flawless. The psychology. I am reminded of the case of the disappearing butler in 1927. A manservant performed loyalty so convincingly that the entire household believed him innocent of a series of thefts. He rehearsed every morning in the servant's mirror. The furrowed brow of concern, the steady voice of indignation, the precise tilt of the head when denying accusations. He had practiced the widening of the eyes in shock until it looked natural. But he made one fatal error. When finally confronted, his hands reached for his pocket watch with calm precision and wound it steadily. A truly loyal man facing the betrayal of trust would have fumbled. The body, it knows the truth even when the face lies with skill. The little gray cells understand this. The psychology beneath the polished performance. In that case, the butler stole not purely for greed, but to protect a hidden love affair with a maid in the house. Masks are worn for many reasons, mon ami. Protection, desire, survival. The truth. Therefore, Lady Violet knew far more than she claimed. Her devotion is costume, not genuine feeling. You see it now, non? The theater begins to crumble when the spotlight of truth shines directly upon it. Reflection. In this elegant theater of Highclere Court, humans wear masks not only to deceive others, but to survive their own truths. Greed performs as grief, as Lady Violet's perfectly timed yet dry tears demonstrate. Society demands we play our assigned roles. The devoted sister, the loyal secretary, the grieving husband, until the performance becomes second nature. Why do we cling so tightly to these masks? Fear of exposure, fear of losing status, fear of facing the raw reality of our deepest desires and resentments. This reminds Poirot of the tragic affair of Madame Dupont in her Paris salon in 1928. She played the perfect hostess with flawless elegance, her laughter ringing like crystal under chandeliers, her silk gowns rustling gracefully, her warm smile scented with fine wine and expensive perfume. All the while she hid a slow, poisoning plot against a rival who threatened her social position. Her mask of gracious hospitality was rehearsed to perfection. Yet when confronted, the mask slipped during one simple gesture. She offered tea with hands that trembled not from shock, but from suppressed triumph. The psychology was clear. Hate performing as warm hospitality. She had practiced every line and gesture, but the body betrayed her. Humans deceive because raw truth is uncomfortable and dangerous. Masks provide temporary safety until they slowly suffocate the wearer. The universal truth about deception is that it always leaves traces in the performance. No actor can sustain perfection forever. The eyes betray, the hands forget their script, the voice cracks at the wrong moment. Theatrical wisdom for you, dear listener. Observe not merely what people say on this stage, but the small, unguarded moments when they believe no one is watching. There the true role emerges. In every crime, the theater of human nature reveals what polite society works so hard to conceal. Some masks protect the innocent. Others condemn the guilty. The first act concluded. Some masks had cracked. More would follow. Chapter 4. Rehearsed lines Poirot increased the pressure throughout the long afternoon. The drawing-room of Highclere Court became an interrogation stage, its crystal chandelier tinkling softly overhead like distant applause that never came. The air was thick with the scent of strong continental coffee, fading hothouse lilies, and the faint bitterness of fear no perfume could hide. Lord Reginald Highclere's alibi was tested first. He claimed he had retired to his room by 10 o'clock, yet a servant had seen him on the cold terrace near 11. Wet footprints on the parquet matched his shoes exactly. When confronted, his performance of the grieving widower grew strained. His voice rose too sharply, and his hands trembled as he clutched the crisp linen napkin. "I stepped outside for air, that is all," he protested, the words tumbling out too quickly. The rain had not started then. "This is ridiculous." Poirot tilted his egg-shaped head, his green eyes gleaming. "Rehearsed lines begin to falter, Lord Highclere. The script is failing. A man truly shocked by his wife's death does not leave clear footprints while claiming to be asleep." Charles Beaumont was next. His story of reading quietly in his room collapsed when Poirot produced the book he had named. Its pages were crisp and unmarked, the spine unbroken. Beaumont laughed again, but the sound rang hollow against the crackling fire and the soft rustle of silk from Lady Violet's gown. "I must have picked up the wrong book," he muttered, twisting his kid gloves nervously. "The champagne made everything blurry." "Too smooth, mon ami," Poirot replied, making an expressive gesture with his small hands. "Lies flow like fine wine. Truth stumbles. You stand to gain everything now that the Countess is gone. Watch this performance carefully. Is it truth or theatre?" Miss Evelyn Trent broke slightly under the steady spotlight. She admitted typing a new will for the Countess that very afternoon, one that cut out several beneficiaries, including Beaumont. Her fingers twisted a lace handkerchief, and real tears appeared at last, dampening the crisp fabric. "She found out about Charles and me," she whispered, voice cracking. "She threatened to ruin us both, but I did not kill her, I swear it." The warm drawing-room felt heavier. The fire's warmth clashed with the chill suspicion in the air. Rain drummed steadily against the windows, underscoring every strained word. Lady Violet Ashford's earlier confession expanded under pressure. She admitted, arguing heatedly with her sister over the will, but swore the Countess was still alive when she left. Yet a torn fragment of a letter recovered from the fireplace mentioned Violet's threats in the Countess's own hand. Dr. Marcus Hale's medical records proved most damaging. The Countess had been in excellent health. The sleeping draughts he prescribed were unnecessary, revealing another layer of performance. The faint scent of bitter medicine clung to him as he shifted uncomfortably in the leather armchair. "I only wanted to help her sleep," he said stiffly, smoothing his sleeve with unnecessary care. "The estate pressures were great." Poirot smoothed an imaginary wrinkle from his own sleeve and touched his magnificent moustache thoughtfully. "Rehearsed lines, Doctor. The script fails when examined closely. Helpfulness masking guilt is a common role, but not a convincing one forever." The suspect's performances grew more strained as the afternoon wore on. Lord Highclere paced with heavy footsteps on the parquet, his sandalwood cologne now mixed with the sharp smell of nervous sweat. Miss Trent sat pale and silent, her silk blouse wrinkled from anxious hands. Charles Beaumont smoked cigarette after cigarette on the terrace, the chill air doing nothing to steady his nerves. "Consider the psychology," Poirot said quietly to Inspector Japp as they stood near the grand piano. "What role does each person need to play? Greed performing as grief, loyalty performing as innocence, fear performing as confidence. If you were hiding guilt, how would you perform it?" The tension rose sharply, Someone would break character soon. The crystal glasses from the previous evening still stood on side tables, their faint champagne aroma lingering like a forgotten prop. Wood smoke from the hearth mixed with the scent of fresh flowers that now seemed too cheerful for the occasion. Poirot arranged a few displaced objects on a mahogany table with precise symmetry. His small hands moved with calm deliberation while the grandfather clock chimed in the distance. Doors closed softly in the corridors as servants moved about with hushed voices. Lady Violet dabbed at her eyes again, but the tears were no longer perfectly timed. Dr. Hale's face showed deep lines of tension beneath his professional mask. Charles Beaumont's laughter had vanished entirely, replaced by sullen silence. Rehearsed lines began to falter, Poirot murmured, his green eyes gleaming with quiet satisfaction. The script was failing. Truth needed no rehearsal. The first cracks have widened. Soon the entire performance will collapse. The rain continued its steady rhythm on the windows. The warm drawing-room, once elegant and inviting, now felt like a stage where every actor sensed the curtain drawing closer. The scent of Cuban cigar smoke from the night before still clung faintly to the curtains, a reminder of happier, more rehearsed evenings. Hercule Poirot stood quietly for a moment, observing the cast. Each small gesture, each avoided glance, each tremor of the hands told its own story. The psychology of the drama was becoming clear. Rehearsed lines faltered. The script was failing. Chapter 5. The Mask Slips. The major confrontation occurred in the library as evening shadows lengthened across Highclere Court. Poirot had gathered Lord Reginald Highclere and Miss Evelyn Trent together under the soft glow of the crystal chandelier. Velvet curtains were drawn, and the air carried the rich scent of strong continental coffee and fading hothouse lilies. The fire crackled warmly in the hearth, yet a deep chill of tension filled the room. Poirot stood before them, drawing himself up to his full small height. He smoothed an imaginary wrinkle from his sleeve and made an expressive gesture with his small hands. "The time for performances has grown short. Let us speak plainly now." Lord Highclere's face was pale. His silk dressing-gown hung loosely, and the sandalwood cologne could no longer mask the sharp scent of Fear-Sweet. "I have told you everything, Poirot. I did not kill my wife." Poirot's green eyes gleamed. "Did you not?" "Financial records show massive gambling debts, Lord Highclere. A secret life insurance policy worth a fortune now rests on the Countess's death. Your performance of the grieving husband was convincing, until the footprints on the terrace and the dry eyes betrayed you." Highclere collapsed into the leather armchair. His shoulders shook with genuine sobs at last, no longer rehearsed. "I needed the money, yes. The estate was crumbling, but I loved her in my own way. I did not stab her." Miss Evelyn Trent sat rigid, her silk blouse now wrinkled, and her hands clenched tightly in her lap. The light perfume she wore seemed suddenly too delicate for the heavy atmosphere. Poirot turned to her, tilting his egg-shaped head. "And you, mademoiselle?" Your role as the devoted secretary was played with care. Yet you typed the new will that afternoon, the one cutting out several beneficiaries. You and Charles Beaumont planned to elope once the inheritance was secure. The Countess discovered your affair. She threatened to ruin you both. Trent's face crumpled. The mask slipped completely. Real tears streamed down her cheeks, dampening the crisp linen handkerchief she clutched. Her voice broke in a raw, emotional sob. "She found the letters. She said she would expose us, destroy Charles's future and mine. We argued, but I swear I left her alive. I did not kill her." The breakdown was genuine. Her shoulders heaved with uncontrollable weeping, the sound echoing against the polished mahogany and cold marble. No perfect timing now, no dry eyes, only raw fear and regret pouring out. Poirot watched intently. The mask had fallen. Beneath it, the true face at last. Observe how genuine emotion emerges only when the pressure becomes unbearable. Fear performing as loyalty finally crumbles. The body can sustain the act for only so long, he continued, voice calm yet piercing. The Countess was not merely difficult. She was a blackmailer. She held secrets over every one of you. Your debts, Lord Highclere. Your secret affair, Miss Trent. Your medical mistakes, Dr. Hale. Your financial resentments, Lady Violet. Her love of control performed as care, but it was tyranny dressed in silk and worth perfume. Lord Highclere looked up, eyes red. She enjoyed the power. She changed the will constantly to keep us all dancing. Miss Trent wiped her tears, hands still shaking. She enjoyed watching us squirm. But I did not drive that letter opener into her back. Someone else did. Poirot arranged a few objects on the table symmetrically, his small hands moving with precision. The grandfather clock chimed softly in the distance, marking the moment. Rain continued its steady patter against the windows, a constant underscore to the drama. Crucial psychological insight, mes amis, Poirot said. People wear masks because the truth is dangerous. Greed performs as grief. Obsession performs as love. Calm performs as confidence. But guilt always leaves its mark in the small, unguarded moments. A tremor, an avoided glance, an instinctive gesture when cornered. He turned to both of them. You watch with Poirot, non? You see how the performances crack when the spotlight grows too bright? Ask yourself, if you were hiding guilt, how would you perform innocence? Would your hands stay steady? Would your eyes remain dry? The warm drawing room felt oppressive now. The scent of wood smoke mixed with the faint bitterness of exposed secrets. Crystal glasses stood forgotten on side tables, their champagne long flat. Lord Highclere buried his face in his hands. I am ruined, but I am no murderer. Miss Trent's emotional storm subsided into quiet, genuine sobs. We were trapped, all of us. But someone used that trap to kill her. Poirot's green eyes gleamed with satisfaction. The mask had fallen. Beneath it, the true face at last. The psychology, it reveals the hidden currents. Someone in this theater killed to escape the Countess's control. The performance of innocence is ending. Soon the true actor will stand revealed in the spotlight. The tension in the room rose to a breaking point. Footsteps echoed softly on the parquet as a servant passed in the corridor. The fire's warmth could not chase away the chill of revelation. Someone's mask had fallen completely. Real feeling had emerged at last. The drama approached its climax. The mask had fallen. The true face emerged. Chapter 6. Behind the curtain, the evening deepened at Highclere Court, and Poirot drew back the velvet curtains to reveal the hidden backstage of relationships. The library smelled of furniture wax, old leather, and the faint wood smoke drifting from the dying fire. A single lamp cast long shadows across the polished mahogany desk where Poirot sat arranging his notes with precise symmetry. Past secrets spilled out like forgotten props. The Countess had discovered Lord Reginald Highclere's enormous gambling debts and his discreet affair with a London actress. She had used this knowledge to control him completely, threatening to cut him off without a penny. Miss Evelyn Trent and Charles Beaumont had been secretly planning to elope for months. The Countess had intercepted their letters and threatened public scandal that would destroy both their reputations. Lady Violet Ashford bitterly resented her sister's iron grip on the family fortune and had argued violently over money more than once. Dr. Marcus Hale had covered up a past patient's death through falsified records, and the Countess had known about it. holding the threat of exposure over his head like a sword. Hidden connections wove through every relationship. The Countess had not simply been difficult. She had been a spider at the center of a web, enjoying the power her secrets gave her. Her care for the family was a performance of love masking cold control. Every kindness came with a price. Poirot touched his magnificent moustache thoughtfully, his green eyes gleaming in the lamplight. Behind the elegant facade, the true motives emerge. Greed, resentment, fear, all dressed in silk and fine words. The stage was beautiful, but the backstage was rotten. Lord Highclere sat slumped in a leather armchair, his face stripped of its earlier dignity. She enjoyed watching us dance. Every time I begged for money, she smiled and reminded me of my mistakes. Miss Trent, eyes still red from her earlier breakdown, spoke softly. She found our letters. She said she would ruin Charles's inheritance and my future unless I helped her change the will in her favor. We felt trapped. Charles Beaumont paced near the cold terrace door, the chill night air seeping in. She was a tyrant in pearls, always meddling, always threatening. But I didn't kill her. Lady Violet twisted her lace handkerchief, the soft fabric now damp with genuine tears. Amelia controlled everything, the money, the house, even our marriages. I hated her for it, but I never wished her dead. Dr. Hale stood stiffly, the faint scent of bitter medicine clinging to his clothes. She threatened to report me to the medical board. My career would have ended. I only wanted to protect my family. Poirot made an expressive gesture with his small hands. Observe how the masks fall away when the curtain is drawn. Loyalty performed as resentment, helpfulness masking guilt, love twisted into obsession. The Countess' greatest pleasure was pulling the strings while pretending to be the devoted wife and sister. The rain had eased, but occasional drops still tapped against the windows, like hesitant applause. The grandfather clock chimed softly, marking the slow revelation of truth. The warm drawing-room felt distant now. Here in the library, the air was cooler, heavier with exposed secrets. Reflection. Behind the curtains of Highclere Court, motives hide like actors waiting nervously in the wings. Greed performs as grief, resentment as sisterly concern, and fear as calm professionalism. Humans wear masks because society's grand stage demands flawless performances. The perfect marriage, the loyal employee, the grieving relative. Remove the mask, and raw humanity appears, flawed, desperate, and painfully real. This reminds me of the famous Orient Express affair, where a group of passengers performed the roles of ordinary travelers while concealing a collective act of vengeance. Each had rehearsed their part meticulously. Polite smiles over glasses of fine wine. Casual conversations scented with cigar smoke and expensive perfume, concerned frowns at exactly the right moments. Their ensemble performance was almost perfect. Yet one small tell betrayed them all. When speaking of the victim, one man's hand steadied his crystal glass with unnatural firmness instead of trembling with shock. The psychology of collective masks is fascinating. Individuals submerge themselves into the group role, believing there is safety and strength in numbers. But guilt always manifests individually, in a tremor of the voice, an avoided glance, or an overplayed line of innocence. Poirot saw through the choreography because the body cannot lie as convincingly as the face. The universal truth is that hidden motives always surface when the curtain is finally drawn. No performance, no matter how well rehearsed, survives infinite scrutiny. Every secret breeds a motive. Every motive demands its dramatic scene. Theatrical wisdom for you, dear listener. Look backstage in your own life. What role are you playing that no longer fits comfortably? What secret waits behind your own velvet curtain, ready to step into the light? In the theater of crime, every secret eventually finds its motive, and every motive writes its own ending. Behind every curtain, a secret. Every secret a motive. Chapter 7. The final act, the cast assembled in the grand drawing-room of Highclere Court under the glittering crystal chandelier. Velvet curtains framed the scene, and the fire crackled warmly in the marble hearth, casting flickering light across polished mahogany and silk gowns. The air carried the mingled scents of fading hothouse lilies, strong continental coffee, and the faint chill of tension that no perfume could mask. Rain had stopped, leaving only the soft ticking of the grandfather clock like a final drum roll. Hercule Poirot stood at the center of the stage, drawing himself up to his full small height. He smoothed an imaginary wrinkle from his sleeve and made an expressive gesture with his small hands. His green eyes gleamed with quiet satisfaction as he surveyed the assembled players. Mesdames et messieurs, you have each performed for Poirot, some truthfully, some not. Let us review the performances, shall we? Lord Reginald Highclere sat rigid in his armchair, his face pale beneath the sandalwood cologne. Poirot turned to him first. Lord Highclere, you played the grieving widower with appropriate gravity. The pacing, the cracked voice, the clutch of the linen napkin, all technically correct. But the grief was costume. Your steady hands when the body was discovered betrayed prior knowledge of the insurance payout. Your wet footprints on the terrace at 11 o'clock told the true story. Greed performed as grief, but the mask never quite fit. Lord Highclere lowered his head, shoulders slumping in defeat. Poirot continued, tilting his egg-shaped head. Miss Evelyn Trent, you performed the loyal secretary with quiet devotion. The crisp silk blouse, the neatly folded hands, the soft voice. Yet loyal secretaries do not burn fragments of wills that expose their secret lovers. You typed the new will that afternoon, cutting out several beneficiaries. Your affair with Charles Beaumont gave you both motive and opportunity. Miss Trent's face drained of color. Her hands trembled visibly in her lap. Lady Violet Ashford, your role was the devoted sister. The delicate weeping into the lace handkerchief, the black silk gown shimmering under the lights. But innocent sisters do not leave traces of their lipstick on the murder weapon. You argued violently with the Countess after 10 o'clock. Your resentment over money and control was no secret. Lady Violet gasped, pressing the now damp handkerchief to her lips. Charles Beaumont, you played the carefree nephew brilliantly. The lounging against the velvet curtains, the bitter laugh, the untouched champagne. Yet innocent bystanders do not hide unread books as alibis. Your planned elopement with Miss Trent made the Countess's death convenient for both of you. Beaumont clenched his fists, his earlier nonchalance shattered. Poirot turned to the last suspect. And Dr. Marcus Hale, you performed the helpful family physician, the leather bag, the precise medical notes, the calm voice. But helpful physicians do not prescribe unnecessary sleeping draughts to cover past malpractice. The Countess held your secret like a dagger. Dr. Hale stiffened, his face ashen. Poirot drew himself up, his voice rising with theatrical power. And so we come to our leading performer. He paused, letting the silence stretch like a held breath. The crystal chandelier tinkled softly overhead. The fire crackled. All eyes were fixed on him. Miss Evelyn Trent, you gave the most convincing performance of all. The shocked secretary, the helpful assistant, the quiet grief. Magnifique! You brought the Countess her coffee, typed her letters, and smiled while hiding your hatred. But you made one fatal error, one small moment when the mask slipped completely. Miss Trent stared at him, eyes wide with terror. "When I mentioned the burnt papers in the fireplace during our earlier conversation, your hand instinctively reached to adjust your blouse. Not from nervousness, but to hide the small red burn mark on your wrist. A fresh burn from pushing the papers deeper into the flames after the murder. A truly innocent woman would not have carried such a precise tell of guilt. The psychology is clear. You killed her not in blind rage, but in cold, calculated relief, to free yourself and your lover from her control. The body betrayed you when the mind had rehearsed perfection. You locked the door from inside, stabbed her with her own letter opener during the argument, then forced the window afterward to stage the burglary. Helpfulness masking guilt was your finest role, but the curtain must fall. Miss Trent rose halfway from her chair, then collapsed back down. The mask shattered entirely. Her shoulders heaved with raw, broken sobs. She was going to destroy us. She enjoyed our suffering. I couldn't take it anymore. I stabbed her and tried to make it look like a robbery. God help me, I did it." A heavy silence fell over the drawing room. Lord Highclere buried his face in his hands. Lady Violet wept openly. Charles Beaumont stared in stunned disbelief. "Doctor." Hale looked away, pale and shaken. Poirot stood motionless for a moment, then spoke softly. "The performance is over. The curtain falls. The truth. She takes her bow." Inspector Japp stepped forward and placed a gentle but firm hand on Miss Trent's shoulder. Footsteps echoed on the parquet as he led her away. The silk of her blouse rustled one last time, no longer crisp and confident. The final act concluded. Only truth survived the curtain call. Chapter 8. Curtain Call. The drawing-room of Highclere Court felt strangely empty after the revelation. The crystal chandelier still sparkled overhead, but its light now seemed colder, less forgiving. The fire in the marble hearth had burned low, leaving only glowing embers that cast faint warmth across the polished mahogany tables and velvet curtains. The air carried the fading scent of hothouse lilies, strong continental coffee, and the sharp residue of exposed fear. Miss Evelyn Trent was led away by Inspector Japp and 2 constables. Her silk blouse, once crisp and neat, now hung wrinkled and defeated. The light perfume she had worn earlier had faded, replaced by the raw smell of tears and despair. She walked with unsteady footsteps on the parquet floor, no longer playing any role. The mask of the loyal secretary had been stripped away completely, leaving only a broken young woman facing justice. Lord Reginald Highclere remained slumped in his leather armchair. His face was grey, the sandalwood cologne unable to hide the exhaustion and shame that clung to him. "I never thought it would come to this," he whispered, his voice hoarse. "I knew she controlled us all but murder. I am ruined, yet I am not a killer." Lady Violet Ashford sat beside him, her black silk gown rumpled. She no longer dabbed at her eyes with perfect delicacy. Real tears flowed freely now, soaking the lace handkerchief. The performance of grieving sister had dissolved into genuine sorrow mixed with guilt. "I hated her power over us," she admitted quietly, her voice trembling without rehearsal. "But I never wished her dead. Poor Amelia. She brought this upon herself with her secrets and threats." Charles Beaumont stood near the French window, staring out at the dark terrace where cold night air still lingered. His earlier carefree lounging had vanished. He twisted his kid gloves nervously, the material soft between his fingers. "We were trapped," he said bitterly. "Trent and I, we only wanted to be free. But not like this. Not with blood on our hands." Dr. Marcus Hale paced slowly near the grand piano. His leather medical bag rested forgotten on a side table. The faint scent of bitter medicine still clung to his clothes. "I should have seen the signs," he murmured. Her threats, her control. I prescribed those drafts to keep her calm, but it only fed her power. My own secret made me weak. Poirot moved among them like a director after the final curtain. He touched his magnificent mustache thoughtfully and arranged a few displaced crystal glasses symmetrically on the table. His small hands moved with calm precision. The performances are over, mes amis. No more roles to play. The theater has shown its true face tonight. The grandfather clock chimed softly in the distance, its sound clear and final. Footsteps of the departing police echoed down the corridor, doors closing softly behind them. The rain had stopped completely, leaving only the quiet drip of water from the eaves outside. Lord Highclere looked up at Poirot, eyes hollow. What happens now? The estate is in ruins. My wife is dead. Everything we built is gone. You will face the consequences of your weaknesses, Poirot replied gently but firmly. But you are not the murderer. Justice begins its slow work. The insurance, the debts, the secrets, they will all be examined in the light of day. No more hidden curtains. Lady Violet reached out and touched her brother-in-law's hand. The gesture was awkward, unrehearsed, yet real. We must rebuild what we can. Without her control, perhaps we can finally breathe. Charles Beaumont turned from the window, his face pale but determined. I will leave for America, start again. The inheritance is tainted with blood now. I want no part of it. Dr. Hale stopped pacing and drew a deep breath. The chill night air from the terrace seemed to steady him. I shall retire from practice, volunteer where I am truly needed. No more masks, no more covering mistakes. Poirot observed each transformation with quiet satisfaction. His green eyes gleamed as he smoothed an imaginary wrinkle from his sleeve. The warm drawing room, once heavy with suspicion and rehearsed lines, now felt lighter, though sorrow lingered, like wood smoke in the air. The curtain call has come, he said softly. No applause fills this room tonight, only the quiet sound of justice beginning its work. You have all been stripped of your roles. The grieving widower, the loyal secretary, the devoted sister, the carefree nephew, the helpful doctor. Gone. Only human beings remain. Flawed, tired, but honest at last. A servant entered quietly, carrying a tray with fresh coffee. The rich aroma filled the room, warm and comforting. No one spoke for several moments. The crystal chandelier tinkled faintly as a draught moved through the house. Silk rustled as Lady Violet adjusted her gown, no longer performing elegance. Inspector Japp returned briefly, nodding to Poirot. She has confessed fully. The case is closed. You were right, as always. Poirot made a small, expressive gesture. It was not brilliance, mon ami. It was observation, the psychology of the masks. When people perform too perfectly, truth waits to trip them. Lord Highclere stood slowly, his movements heavy. Thank you, Poirot, for ending the nightmare, even if the ending is painful. The others murmured their quiet thanks. The theater of Highclere Court had emptied of its false drama. The suspects, once actors playing their parts with varying skill, now stood as ordinary people, facing ordinary futures. No grand speeches, no dramatic exits. Only the soft closing of doors and the distant chime of the clock. The performance that had cost a life was finally over. No applause for this performance, only justice. Chapter 9. After the show weeks passed and Highclere Court slowly transformed, the grand drawing room, once heavy with suspicion and rehearsed grief, now stood peaceful under the soft morning light. Velvet curtains were drawn back to let in fresh air. The crystal chandelier sparkled cleanly, no longer a witness to strained performances. The scent of fresh hothouse lilies had returned, mixing gently with furniture wax, and the faint aroma of strong continental coffee, served on crisp linen napkins. Lord Reginald Highclere walked the estate grounds with slower, more deliberate steps. His silk dressing gowns and sandalwood cologne were replaced by practical tweed. The massive debts had forced him to sell part of the land, but the burden of secrets had lifted. No longer playing the role of the entitled lord, he had become a humbled caretaker of what remained. "I wasted years dancing to her tune," he told Poirot during a quiet visit. "Now I wake without fear of her next demand." Lady Violet Ashford had moved to a smaller house nearby. Her black silk gowns were packed away. She spent her days quietly helping war widows through a local charity, her once rehearsed tears replaced by genuine compassion. The resentment that had poisoned her relationship with her sister had softened into quiet regret. She arranged flowers in simple vases now, their scent no longer a backdrop for drama, but a source of calm. "I hated her control," she admitted, "but I see now how my own mask of devotion hid bitterness. I am learning to live without it." Charles Beaumont had sailed for America. Letters arrived describing a modest new life in New York, far from the tainted inheritance. His carefree lounging and bitter laughter were gone. In their place was hard work and self-reflection. The planned elopement with Miss Trent had ended in tragedy, but the experience had forged a stronger, quieter character. "The money would have destroyed me," he wrote. "Losing it saved me, Doctor." Marcus Hale had retired from private practice. He now volunteered at a small clinic in the countryside, treating patients who could not afford expensive care. The leather medical bag that once served as a prop for respectability was used honestly. The faint scent of bitter medicine still clung to him, but now it came with purpose rather than fear. "I covered one mistake with lies," he said. "Never again. The mask of the perfect physician is gone. Only the man remains." Miss Evelyn Trent faced her trial and received a life sentence. In prison, her silk blouses and light perfume were replaced by plain uniforms. The calculated performance of the loyal secretary had crumbled completely. Reports spoke of genuine remorse and quiet reflection. The woman who had stabbed the Countess in a moment of desperate relief now confronted the full weight of her actions without any role to hide behind. Hercule Poirot returned to Highclere Court one final time to observe these changes. He walked through the rooms where the drama had unfolded, his small hands occasionally arranging a displaced object with symmetrical precision. The warm drawing-room felt lighter. The cold terrace no longer carried the chill of suspicion. Even the grandfather clock seemed to chime with a gentler rhythm. He stood near the grand piano and touched his magnificent mustache thoughtfully. "The theater has emptied. The actors have left their marks behind. See how each has been transformed. The murderer's mask of innocence is gone forever. The others, once wrongly cast as villains or fools, now play simpler, truer roles." Lord Highclere joined him by the window. "The house feels different without her shadow. Quieter. I am selling more land to pay what I owe, but for the first time I sleep without rehearsing tomorrow's lies." Lady Violet arrived for tea. She poured the rich coffee with steady hands, no longer performing elegance. "We were all trapped in her web," she said softly. "Now the threads are cut. It hurts, but it is honest." The transformations were clear and profound. The elegant stage that had hosted murder had become a peaceful country house once more. Flowers bloomed without serving as props. Footsteps on the parquet sounded lighter. Silk and tweed were worn comfortably rather than as costumes. Poirot observed each change with quiet satisfaction. His green eyes gleamed as he made an expressive gesture toward the garden. "The setting itself has shifted from crime scene to place of healing. The psychology of revelation is powerful. When masks fall, people often discover who they truly are beneath the performance society demanded. The scent of wood smoke drifted from a small fire in the hearth. Champagne was no longer drunk in nervous celebration, but replaced by simple wine shared without pretense. The chill night air that once heightened tension now brought refreshing coolness to the terrace. As evening approached, Poirot prepared to leave. The cast had completed its final scene. Justice had taken its course. The guilty faced punishment. The innocent, though scarred, found new beginnings. Futures once dictated by the Countess's control now stretched open and uncertain, but free. "The theatre has emptied," Poirot said softly as he stood at the door. The distant piano music played gently in another room, no longer ironic but soothing. The lessons, however, remain. Masks may protect us for a time, but they also imprison us. Truth, though painful, sets the stage for something real. Lord Highclere shook his hand warmly. Lady Violet offered a genuine, unrehearsed smile. The house stood quiet behind them, its Art Deco elegance restored to simple beauty. The curtain had fallen weeks ago. The audience, Poirot, the police, and the hidden observer within each of us, had seen the final bow. The theatre emptied. The lessons remained. Chapter 10. Poirot reviews the performance. Hercule Poirot sat comfortably in his London apartment on a quiet evening. A steaming cup of tisane rested on the polished table before him, its herbal scent mingling with the rich aroma of strong continental coffee he had brewed earlier. Velvet curtains were drawn against the chill night air, and the warm glow of a small lamp illuminated the room. Fresh flowers in a crystal vase added a gentle touch of hothouse lilies, while the faint smell of furniture wax spoke of order and method. He arranged a few objects on the table with symmetrical precision, then touched his magnificent moustache thoughtfully. News of the characters from Highclere Court had reached him. Lord Reginald Highclere now managed the reduced estate with quiet humility, free from the weight of debt and secrets. Lady Violet Ashford had found purpose in charity work, her resentment transformed into genuine kindness. Charles Beaumont wrote from America of a simpler, honest life. Dr. Marcus Hale volunteered at a modest clinic, his medical mask discarded for real service. Miss Evelyn Trent remained in prison, her calculated performance of innocence replaced by daily confrontation with remorse. Poirot leaned back, his green eyes gleaming with quiet reflection. The theatre of Highclere Court has closed its doors. The actors have left the stage, each forever changed by the drama they lived. Why do people perform rather than reveal the truth? Fear, above all, fear of judgment, fear of losing status, fear of facing their own flaws. Society demands perfect roles: the devoted husband, the loyal secretary, the grieving widow. We wear these masks until they fuse with our skin. Greed performs as grief, obsession performs as love, calm performs as confidence. In Highclere Court, the Countess controlled the stage with her secrets, forcing everyone to dance in costumes of compliance. They lied not always from evil, but from weakness and the heavy expectations placed upon them. The masks society demands are many. A countess cannot admit her love of power is tyranny. A secretary cannot confess forbidden passion without ruin. A husband cannot reveal gambling debts without losing face. So they rehearse their lines, perfect their gestures, and hope the audience never notices the tremor in the hands or the dryness in the eyes. Yet guilt always betrays the actor. The body knows what the mind tries to hide. A steady hand in shock, dry eyes in grief, an instinctive reach to conceal a burn mark. These are the moments when the performance cracks. This case reminds me strongly of the Styles affair, where a wife performed devoted care while slowly poisoning her husband for inheritance and a lover. She rehearsed every tender touch, every worried frown over bitter medicine, every rustle of her silk gown as she attended him. Her mask of loving wife was flawless. Warm smiles, soft voice, perfect timing. But Poirot noticed how her hands never trembled when administering the tonic, how her eyes lacked genuine moisture. A truly loving wife watches her husband fade with shaking fingers and real tears. The body cannot sustain the lie forever. In that case, as in Highclere, hate performed as loyalty until the final act exposed it. The psychology beneath the performance is everything. The little gestures, the unguarded moments when the actor thinks no one watches. The psychology of revelation is profound. When pressure mounts, the mask slips because maintaining deception requires constant energy. Lies demand rehearsal. Honesty simply exists. In the boudoir that night, Miss Trent's calculated relief turned to action. She stabbed the Countess to escape control, then staged the burglary with care. But the burn on her wrist, the instinctive gesture to hide it, betrayed her completely. Genuine emotion emerged only when the spotlight grew too bright. Raw sobs, trembling hands, broken confessions. That is when truth takes its bow. Why does truth ultimately triumph over performance? Because no actor sustains perfection indefinitely. The human spirit, beneath all costume, yearns for authenticity. Masks may protect us temporarily, but they suffocate the soul. In Highclere Court, the fall of the masks allowed each survivor to discover a simpler, truer self. Lord Highclere became humble. Lady Violet found compassion. Charles sought honest work. Even the guilty faced justice without further pretense. The theater emptied, but the lessons lingered. Observe the small tells. Question the too perfect performance. Look for the dry eyes behind the tears. The difference between performed and genuine emotion lies in the unrehearsed details. A real sob shakes the whole body. Genuine grief leaves mascara running and handkerchiefs damp. A truly shocked person fumbles. These are the moments Poirot watches for. In every crime, the theater of human nature reveals what polite society conceals. People lie from fear, greed, love, or pride. But the truth emerges because the body and the little gray cells refuse to cooperate with the lie forever. Theatrical wisdom for you, dear listener. You have watched this drama unfold with Poirot. You have learned to see beyond the costumes and the polished lines. Ask yourself in your own life, what role do you play that no longer fits? When does your mask slip? When the spotlight of truth shines, will you be ready? Compassion and suspicion must walk together. People are not always evil for wearing masks. They are often weak, frightened, or trapped by expectation. Yet truth, though painful, brings freedom. Poirot sipped his tisane, the warm liquid comforting in the quiet room. The apartment felt peaceful, far from the elegant but poisoned stage of Highclere Court. Outside, the city moved on, but here the director of truth reviewed the final performance with satisfaction. Until the next theater of crime, mes amis, Poirot watches always. The curtain falls here, but the little gray cells remain vigilant. The stage awaits its next tragedy and its next seeker of truth.